every time we get flown to Australia, or every time we play Reading, or every time we, someone pays for us to put a record out, I don't know if it's going to be the last time. So it's just like, I think we're pretty good at, like making the most of it now, for sure.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon Daly, and I'm joined by the vaccine's Justin Young for the latest in NME's In Conversation series. Hey, Justin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. We're talking today because it's a few days until the release of your fifth album, Back in Love City. Last time we spoke, you were explaining how the concept of the album is inspired by like, dystopias and sin cities, love hotels, and the idea of emotion as like a finite resource. And I guess this is the vaccine's first like concept album in a way. How do you think having these kind of ideas that you wanted to portray and kind of tie everything together helped you or like made the album come together differently compared to the other albums that you've made?
You were the first person that sort of like strong-armed me into accepting the fact it was, loosely at least, a concept record or conceptual, because you were the first person I spoke to about it outside of kind of our inner sanctum. But I'm coming to terms with the fact that it potentially is a concept record. But more than being a kind of defined concept, I think this kind of, even just the term was just started acting as a bit of like a guiding light. And I think it was, we had this phrase Love City or Back in Love City, and so I think it just allowed us to kind of like build on that world and build on that place and build on that idea every time we wrote a song. And there were some songs that would kind of be put to one side because they maybe didn't feel like they existed under that umbrella or under that night sky or whatever it may be, and there were others that were kind of written to fit into it. So yeah, it was a sort of guiding light more than anything, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Where did the kind of initial idea for Love City as a place come from?
I don't really know. Like, I think much like many songs, I'm not really sure where it came from. I did write it on this very sofa, but I'm not really sure. It kind of fell out of my mouth, and what I did know straight away was that I thought the album should be called Back in Love City, even though I didn't know what that meant. And so I emailed the rest of the band, pretty much as soon as I finished the song, and sent them the song and said, this is a new song, and also perhaps something more than just a song. And I think everyone agreed. And so then from there, we kind of were able to, I guess, like I say, kind of build on that.
Mm-hmm. And the themes of the album are kind of ones that are super relevant right now, like the ideas of connection and emotion. But it's something that you came up with pre-pandemic, of course, because you're already recording in like early 2020. I guess these are ideas that have been prevalent in society for a long time before the pandemic. When did you start kind of writing about those ideas, and what interested you in writing about them?
I think I've always been really fascinated by, connection and misconnection and disconnection and all this sort of things. And I think, as you rightly say, COVID didn't really change much there. It just maybe expedited some stuff and heightened and highlighted other things. English Graffiti was like very much like a record about connecting and wanting to connect and not being able to. So it's definitely like not new ground for us in that respect. I mean, one thing that I'm, sort of quite interested in at the moment is the idea of things running out. We're constantly reminded of things, the things that we have now that we may not have in the future, and also of things being very like binary, being like very good, evil, on, off, yes, no, whatever that may be. And emotions, love, hate, hope, despair, anxiety, depression, ecstasy, excitement, they're quite like, those phrases in and of themselves, or those words are quite, I guess, like reductive really, because language can't really do emotion justice.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that we kind of interact and connect now is in quite a binary fashion. If you think about the last 18 months, even though we've been very connected with our friends and our family and everything through Zoom, for example, I think everything has been it's been like forced into quite a kind of binary corner. So it's interesting to think about emotions as these quite sort of like well, like almost like simplifying them to things, to being things that you could sort of like buy and sell and run out of and all that kind of thing. Is just like interesting to me.
Yeah, I guess it kind of mirrors the way that music is marketed, this idea of like emotion as something you can plug in and plug out of. Because I feel like with a lot of records now, the angle is always based around like some kind of emotion, whether someone's written like a breakup album or like an album about depression and mental health. Is that kind of how you see, do you see music as like something that you can just plug in and out of to feel something
Well,
already?
to be fair, like I don't think that's necessarily a new thing, and I think music and film and, you know, art as a whole is probably the closest you can get to, you know, like plugging into an
Yeah,
emotion. Like I think, like, you know, I think we're all guilty of, you know, when we want a bit of, you know, when we want to wallow in a bit of self-pity, you know, like plugging it, you know, like putting on a pair of headphones and listening to, you know, our favorite sad song or record or whatever, and being transported by it and feeling exactly as we wanted to feel. And then vice versa, you know, you might want to feel the ecstasy of like this incredible, you know, uplifting, euphoric dance or gospel song or whatever it may be, you know. And so I think that actually music probably is as close to your as you'll ever get to the kind of real concept of Love City or something, you know.
yeah. In the way that sci-fi films have like predicted things in the future or things that have already happened for us that were in the future when they were made, do you feel like emotion running out is something that could ever happen?
No, I don't think so, probably.
Talking of movies, are there any films or TV shows that kind of help bring Love City as a place, a visual place to life in your head?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was, you know, there was the movie People's Republic of Desire, which, you know, we named, or I named, or we named a song after on the record, which I'd implore everyone to watch. It's just, if nothing else, really entertaining. You know, to be completely honest with you, our viewing habits are much like our listening habits. They're quite sort of like erratic and sporadic and stuff. So, you know, when you're working on a body of work or record, or anything else, you know, you're sort of like, you become a bit of a sieve and you try and take on as much as you can. And I suppose everything you do and everything you see and everywhere you go and everyone you meet kind of starts to become a bit of a kind of influence. But yeah, and also it was, you know, it was 2.5 years ago now that we started this process. So I'm not sure, I'll probably be lying to you if I like, you know, picked out anything in particular.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And when you first started working on this record, you did a house with someone in LA, where you kind of went and lived in their house and kind of lived their life for a month. How did that experience kind of bring the themes of this record into focus a bit more?
Again, I just think, you know, it's interesting that we, you know, I didn't actually think that to be a particularly remarkable thing, but I did tell our friend who did the biography, and it's since been picked out by everyone. And I suppose, you know, it is relevant and it is interesting because I was able to, in, you know, the world we live, basically put my house on a kind of dating site for houses where I like took lots of nice pictures of it and said all the best things about it and the local area and all that kind of thing, and found, you know, someone to take it off my hands, and I quite liked the look of their house as well. And so it was quite, yeah, it was quite weird that we swap, you know, we like kind of swapped lives, and I like drove his car around and, you know, borrowed his gym membership and vice versa, and we never met, and we have still never met. You know, it's kind of, I suppose that's quite a good example really of how closely you can be connected to someone but really you know, not know them at all.
Would you do that again? Would you swap houses with someone again?
Yeah, I would actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the Holiday 2, the Holiday 3, the Holiday 4. Wasn't there talk of them making a sequel to the Holiday?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know, I haven't even watched the original, so I can't.
It's a great film.
Okay, I'll watch it. So you went to Texas to record the album at Sonic Ranch, which last time we spoke, you said was the best month of your lives as individuals, not just as a band. Why? Why was it so different compared to the other times you've been away to record?
Well, it's only the second time we've recorded in a residential studio, and I think that you know, it just makes the whole thing a completely different process because you can't turn up late, you know, you can't leave early. It's a completely immersive experience, and you're living it really. You're only ever, eating, sleeping, or working, because there's really nothing else to do. And so you really get into this like rhythm, and if you're enjoying the work and you're enjoying the music, then that becomes quite, you know, addictive. And you know, I would go to bed every night sort of just excited to wake up and start the process again. And I think that the first time we did that was in Brussels, which was great and exciting, you know, but like being in the desert in Texas is, you know, that I have to admit kind of trumps that. And, you know, it was a very sort of like all the senses were heightened, I guess. You know, it was a real, you know, I mean, it was on, okay, put it this way, like Trump's border wall ran through the property, you know, so it was really, you know, it was quite an extreme place to go, having, you know, started making the record in West London. And I don't know, it just kind of, it just was all it just sort of engrossed us, really. Sorry that I'm kind of rambling there, but because I don't really know how to put it into words.
Yeah. I was going to say, on the song Wanderlust, you sing "Open Up Your Borders." Is that just a coincidence, that line, or was that kind of?
Yeah, that is a coincidence. You know, it was kind of hard knowing that, you know, this wall was running through the property, and actually the town that the studio is in, or the nearest town, is where all of the internment camps were, where the kids were like separated from their parents and stuff. So, you know, I think you were very aware of that when you were there. But that, you know, those kind of lyrics and stuff predated me even knowing we were going to record in Texas. And there were like a few serendipitous moments like that. I mean, the song El Paso was written and finished before we knew we were going to go and record in El Paso and all that sort of stuff. So there were kind of I think that's quite a good example of everything kind of like fitting together quite sort of like poetically.
Yeah, definitely. The song Heartland is a love letter to American pop culture. What was it like recording it in the studio, which was so kind of close, and you have like the ugly, evil side of America so close to you?
Yeah, again, I think that's like a good example of you know, you're sort of singing this like intentionally quite naive love letter to America, you know, in the form of what you thought it was as a kind of like 13, 14, 15-year-old boy, very aware of what it also is. And you know, America is a place of extremes, and it's all these great, you know, it's all these great things, but it's also, you know, responsible for quite a lot of darkness and confronts quite a lot of darkness, I think, obviously on a daily basis. So I think we were all very aware of that. It was weird actually, because no one in the studio was American. So the band are from several different countries, but not America. Daniel Ladinsky is Swedish, and then all the kind of studio personnel that he'd sort of amassed were Mexican and Argentinian and all that sort of stuff. So it was quite weird kind of being in this little like bubble in this, you know, in this studio in Texas, singing about, you know, this English teenage boy's love of America, or the idea of America, but yeah, not really being with any Americans.
Yeah. Aside from the kind of the border wall being there, what was the rest of the experience in the studio like? It sounds quite wild, like coyotes and all of that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, supposedly haunted. Yeah, I didn't witness anything. I'm not sure I would have done, but yeah, I mean, it was just like I said, it just kind of really was just like very immersive. You know, we were kind of in studio B or C, so we'd have to like hop in the back of a pickup truck every morning and drive a couple of miles to breakfast, where these amazing Mexican ladies would cook us a kind of like super tasty Mexican breakfast, and then we'd like get back to work, and that we'd, you know, build these big log fires every night and listen to coyotes sort of howling and you know, drink like tins of cheap American lager, and it was a good time. It felt like you know, felt like punk rock summer camp, to be honest.
Yeah. Fun. This is the first full record you've made with Tim and Johan in the band, and you've said that this is it kind of felt like when you're in the band for the first time, or when you first started the band, I should say. Did you feel like before this record you were kind of going through the motions a bit, or you kind of lost the spark momentarily?
No, I don't think so. I think the only time that really happened was sort of just before Pete left, and I think that was why he left. And you know, I don't really, looking back, I don't really blame him, but I think that, you know, that was kind of like, that was the wake up call we needed. And I think ever since then, we've been pretty good at making sure everything is like fun more than anything else. You know, kind of, I think we maybe had to remind ourselves of just how lucky we were and how good we had it. And, you know, the reason Tim and Johan joined halfway through Combat Sports was just because of how much better they made everything, you know, not just sound, but feel. And so I think that for, you know, for a good few years now, we've kind of, you know, every day's felt like being in a band for the first time. And I know it sounds cheesy, but I do sort of like, more than anything, feel like we're all sort of like personally in a really good place. And that's probably one of the reasons we had, or probably the reason we had so much fun making it. And it was such kind of like fluid experience, like creatively.
Yeah. You are 11 years into the band now. Is kind of fun the number one priority for you these days?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think the longer we do it and the longer, you know, we're lucky enough to kind of have people care about us doing it, I think, you know, the luckier we all feel. And I'm always very aware of like, every time we get flown to Australia, or every time we play Reading, or every time we, you know, someone pays for us to put a record out, you know, I don't know if it's going to be the last time. So it's just like, you know, I think we're pretty good at, you know, like making the most of it now, for sure.
Yeah. And this album, I think we spoke before the last time about kind of like the DNA of the vaccines and how this record has that, but I think you're also pushing forward the sound quite a lot. You have like the heavier songs, big pop songs, kind of like the Morricone, like spaghetti western vibe to some of the songs as well. How important is it for you to be kind of doing new things as well as kind of sticking to what is at your core?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, very important is the sort of easy answer and quick answer. You know, I think whenever a band or artist starts, like, you know, the journey of making a new record, you know, you want things to be interesting, and you want to stay interested, and you want to evolve, and you want to push things forward. And I think you know, the sort of paradox is that people kind of get into an artist or fall in love with an artist because they want to, you know, they believe in them as artists. And so part of that is that artist challenging themselves, but then people also expect certain things of any artist, right? And you're kind of in this sort of like, you sort of enter into this sort of like, I guess, like unofficial like contract with your fan base, where they're like, well, you know, we love you, but this is why we love you. And that definitely, you know, I definitely lose sleep over that at night. And I'm not, maybe no artist truly knows what they're doing, and they're kind of constantly sort of like walking through the dark. But yeah, I'm always thinking, okay, how can we move forward, and how can we evolve, and how can we stay interesting, but at the same time sort of like, you know, retain at our core what it is that makes us the Vaccines and what makes people love what we do, I guess.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a pressure not to stray too far, at like make a too big a leap almost?
Well, I think that's, yeah, maybe, but I think that's kind of natural, because if you leap too, you know, then you have to start asking questions like what are the Vaccines? Who are the Vaccines? I don't know. But I think that you can, I think you can cast your net pretty far and wide. I don't know.
What would you say for you personally, do you think is the reasons why the Vaccines have kind of stuck around for 11 years now and people are still kind of like resonating with your music?
Maybe because we like haven't broken up yet. I don't know. That's the hardest thing, really. I don't. I mean, I really hope that it's sort of to some degree connected to my last answer. Like I really, you know, we really like believe in ourselves as a band, and really actually we believe we're capable of like bigger and better. And I think every time we start a record, we think that this will be the one, and you know, we're not interested, I think, in making the same record over and over again. And I actually, you know, I'm very aware that the Vaccines aren't to everyone's taste, as you could say about any artist. But I think that to certain people, we're exactly what they're looking for, and I think that's because we truly believe in what we do, and we always push ourselves, and you know, we really, yeah, getting better is really important to us.
Mm-hmm. Last time we spoke, you said that you thought this album is your best album. Do you still believe that?
Yes.
Good. Me too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do. I love it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Would have been bad if I was like, nah.
Well, you never know.
You never know. You mentioned the song El Paso earlier, and that song was written on Elliott Smith's guitar.
So they say.
So they say. Is that
So
true?
they say. I mean, yeah. I mean, as far as I'm aware, yeah, yeah.
How did that come to be in your possession?
Well, it's not in my possession. It's in Daniel's possession,
Okay.
and I think he's got quite a plausible story about the kind of lineage.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a sort of disclaimer, I think most guitars in most sort of popular studios have probably at some point been played by someone more impressive than oneself. But it's a nice blurb, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. And the song Alone Star, when you tweeted the lyric video for that the other day, you wrote, "You're never really alone when you're singing your favorite song." Do you want this record, part of this record's purpose, to kind of be like a new form of connection for your fans?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they're always in my mind, they're always in my mind when we're writing and recording and arranging and all that sort of stuff. I'm always thinking, I said to you before we sort of started recording that I'd been writing today, and I'm not just thinking about the band when I'm writing, I'm thinking about our fans, and you're kind of already projecting into the future where them, to where there might be a time where people are singing it back to you, and you are kind of connecting, and you're kind of, you're the congregation, you're as one. And so I think that's like a huge part of what we do. I think that's why we're so drawn to kind of, big pop sort of euphoric, simple sort of melodies, really.
Yeah. How have you found the last 18 months without being able to like play these songs for people and have people singing back at you?
Yeah, it's been really hard. I mean, from a personal point of view and perspective, it's, I just feel like I've had like a part of me like cut off, not being able to perform and not being able to sort of connect. You definitely feel like a part of you's missing. And then as a band, as an artist, it's quite hard to sort of know, it's like, is anyone still out there? Like there's nothing really like tangible or quantifiable to hold on to, so you sort of like, you feel very like detached from your music or your music and people consuming it and stuff. So it's been really, as I'm sure everyone will tell you, it's been one of the very many difficult things that we'll face this year.
You have been playing a few shows this summer. Your first show back in nearly 2 years was at Latitude, which was really good. What was it like being back on stage?
It was super. It was very emotional. I definitely I was wearing sunglasses for the first couple of songs, but behind the sunglasses were teary eyes. And I think that it was just, I think you could feel the sense of elation and euphoria, across the festival that weekend, and it was amazing to see every artist kind of as excited to be there as all the audiences, and it's often not the way. Yeah, it was amazing. And I'm not sure we necessarily I didn't necessarily feel like I'd found my flow state, but it was this kind of, it was like 50% feeling like you'd been transported back in time, and you were it was kind of like you were in a dream or whatever. And it was like 50% sort of like, oh, I felt like I was doing this yesterday, like nothing's changed. But yeah, it was weird, but it was amazing.
Yeah, that's what I felt like being at the festival. Like the first day was kind of just like super emotional, and then the Saturday onwards was just like, it's just a festival.
Yeah.
And you have a big tour coming up this month, where you're playing lots of kind of smaller venues than you typically would, and some of these shows are in association with the Revive Live campaign. Why is it important for people to kind of get back out to small shows as well as like the academies and the arenas now that music is back?
I think those smaller venues are not just like the lifeblood to younger artists like coming through and like plying their trade, as it were, but also to like local areas. If I think about being a music fan or a young musician in my local area, if I didn't have Mr. Smith's or the Old Fire Station in Bournemouth or the Joiners in Southampton, or I don't know, like Winchester Railway Inn, then I wouldn't have been able to like play all these gigs with all these like touring musicians and make connections and make friends with people that were going to change the course of my life. And, you know, and then also I was exposed to so many amazing touring artists coming through. You know, it was like, you know, just the fact that like an American artist would come to Southampton, you'd probably just go see them because they were from California or something, you know, as stupid as that sounds. And so, you know, a world without those venues is, you know, it's a pretty depressing thought.
Definitely. What can people expect from the tour that's coming up?
Well, you know, a good mix of new and old. I think obviously, as you can attest to, we're, you know, pretty excited to just be fortunate enough to be playing again. So I think that hopefully it'll really be dialed up. Yeah, I think, you know, new and old, lots of energy, unleashed, I think. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, and intimate, you know. I think it's going to be, like you say, these are pretty small rooms, so we're going to be sharing blood, sweat and tears.
Yeah, hopefully not too much blood though.
Or sweat, actually, in
yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of the vaccine stuff, you do a lot of writing with other artists. A couple of years ago, you worked with Kylie Minogue. How was that?
Well, Kylie actually sung on a vaccine song that we did for Shaun the Sheep, the movie, which you know, was definitely like a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, what can I say? She was, you know, everything I would have hoped for, a true professional.
You've been writing recently with Alfie Templeman and Maisie Peters. When you're working with like these younger and newer artists, how do you think that kind of like changes your own songwriting and teaches you new things?
Well, I think that when I was younger, I used to assume that if artists were writing with other people, it's that, you know, it was because they needed to, or maybe like those people were writing for them. And I've since learned that actually you're writing with, and it's almost like you're like starting a band with someone like for the first time every day. And it's a truly like collaborative process. And you know, you learn so much, and every day I feel like I'm starting a band with someone new, completely new, but super talented. And I come away feeling like infinitely better at what I do, even at the end of one day, just because of everything that these people have taught me. So I think just being able to create with so many different people from so many different like corners of music, it's just like, it's helped me beyond measure, really. And I really enjoy it. And I feel like really lucky that I like, you know, like get to dip my toes into that when I'm not doing vaccines and stuff.
Yeah. Is there anything on this album or on the songs you've been working on lately that you think has come from something you've learned from working with other people outside of the band?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I could like condense that into, but you know, but definitely, but you know, there's quite often, to prove my previous point, you know, there's quite often songs that will start, you know, before lunch, intended for one of the people I'm working with, and by the end of the day I'm asking if I can keep it, you know. So it's like there's you know, the lines are very much like, you know, blurred there. I think you just got to, you know, get to the end of the day and write a good song.
And before the pandemic, or just when it started, you released an album with Tim and the Halloweens. And you were meant to be doing shows, which obviously were cancelled for obvious reasons. Can we expect to see or hear more from Halloweens in the future?
Yeah, I really hope so. I've been putting off vocaling like a new song we have actually that I was like gonna do after we finish talking now. So like we're definitely like, we're working on new music, and hopefully if we release new music then we can finally get around to playing some shows. So yeah, no, that's definitely on the cards. I'm just not sure when at this point.
Yeah, exciting. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Justin.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure as always.